24 hours ago, a torrential downpour interrupted race one here at the Red Bull Ring. And I hate to say this, just as we bring you live pictures from the Austrian Grand Prix circuit, it has started to rain. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching us live in the world. This is round 5 of the GTOpen International Championship from the picturesque circuit in the Austrian countryside. Just a few moments ago, race control have declared this a wet race. There is a very slight rain falling around the circuit. The cars are leaving pit lane. For the moment, they're on slick tyres, but the teams are preparing the Michelin wets. This is race 2. This is the 10th race of the 2021 championship. We had qualifying this morning in cool conditions under heavy fog. We are half a kilometre, in fact more, above sea level as the cars leave pit lane ready for this 1 hour race. It was a dry circuit. For the moment it is dry, but there is light rain starting to fall. The wipers are on. As you can see, Dominic Schrammel going out onto the circuit. If you missed race 1 yesterday, we had a torrential downpour. And turn 3, where Adam Carroll is approaching now, it turned into a car park. Al Faisal Al Zubair leaves pit lane. And pleased to see Marcos Pavarud in the repaired Honda. They had a brake issue this morning. We'll speak about that throughout the broadcast. Marcus, the Norwegian, will start on the 4th row of the grid in the NSX Honda. So this is the 5th round of the championship after we got underway at Paul Ricard in the south of France to start the season. You can see just through the windscreen of Jan Seifert's 17 Lamborghini, just gently going out to get a feel for the circuit. The race has just a few moments ago been declared wet. Yesterday, a torrential thunderstorm brought out the red flag 3 minutes before the end of the race. Frederick Schandorf and Michele Beretta were declared the race winners in the 63 Lamborghini, which is on your screen at the moment. There is the confirmation from race control. Yes, the race has been declared wet. A few drops of precipitation falling around the circuit as Christian Korsanowski in the 5 Olymp Racing Audi makes his way onto the start-finish grid. Charlie Eastwood just leaves pit lane at the moment. He will start from pole position. It is still reasonably warm, around about 20 degrees Celsius. And the cars coming onto the grid, they are on the Michelin slick tyre for the moment. The wipers go on Charlie Eastwood's TF Sport Aston Martin, leaves pit lane. Beautifully prepared machine. And it's quick as well. He took pole position this morning in qualifying on a dry circuit. We've still got 4 at the moment. This is round 5 of the championship. In 2 weeks' time, the penultimate round of the series at Monza in the north of Italy, just to the north of the city of Milan. And then the season final on October 23 at Il Circuito Barcelona di Catalunya, the Spanish Grand Prix circuit. So Eastwood makes his way down the back straight. The cars are coming onto the grid. We'll take a look at the grid for you in a moment in its entirety. Eastwood, they finished 2nd in the red flagged race yesterday, and they had tremendous speed in both the dry and the wet. Charlie Eastwood sharing that car with Sam DeHaan, who did the opening stint in race 1 yesterday. Did a good job as well. Not the best qualifying. They're coming back to the GTOpen International Championship after racing at the Le Mans 24-hour race quite recently. Great to have them back on track. They worked their way up through the field, finished 2nd. They were closing in on the leaders until the heavens opened. So Charlie Eastwood will start on pole position in a few moments' time. For race 2, it is slightly shorter the duration, 60 minutes as opposed to 70 minutes yesterday. Race start in 9 minutes and 15 seconds time now. Eastwood makes his way through the grid here at the Red Bull Ring. So the teams are down on the grid with the Michelin slicks on the car. They've also got the Michelin wets prepared. And a couple of cars, including the Yuki Nomoto Baptiste Moulin car up on jacks. This is your pole sitter, Charlie Eastwood, the Northern Irishman, with Sam Dahan. Al-Faisal Al-Zubair sharing the car with Andy Suchek. They had an interesting end to the race yesterday. Ultimately, they were classified 4th in the 77 Elecna Racing Porsche. Carol Bash, Group 3 in the 777 Olymp Racing Mercedes. And this is Frederick Schandorf, yesterday's race winner. They are the championship leader. Frederick Schandorf together with Michele Beretta on 106 points. Adam Carroll starts out of grid 5 in the Balf Motorsport Audi. Here is Adam, the Northern Irishman. And Ollie Milroy.
Good luck, Ollie.
Sharing car 7 with the American Brendan Irib, who only arrived at the circuit on Friday night. Baptiste Moulin.
Okay, enjoy. Have a good start, eh? Remember, it is fast.
The Belgian sharing the car with the Japanese driver, Yuki Nomoto. And speaking of Japan, this is the Honda NSX. Marcus Pavarud. They had an issue in qualifying this morning. It was the left rear brake caliper which was rubbing. They repaired that quickly. They were compromised in qualifying. Team manager Mads Fischer saying they were disappointed, they were frustrated because they had more speed in the car. As you look at Nick Moss, car 72, they led the race yesterday, much of it. Christian Kosanowski, the sole AM entrant, but he is mixing it with the much more experienced drivers. Starts out of grid 10. This is Florian Schultz in the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. Sharing that car with Nico Bastian. Jan Seifert for HP Racing International. With the local driver, the Austrian Gerhard Theresa. And Dominic Schrammel. Car 15, the 2 Germans. Mario Hirsch for Team Equip Vitesse. The highlights of yesterday's race 1. We started under threatening skies. It was rather dark here at the Red Bull Ring, as the 72 McLaren led the field away. Joe Osborne and Nick Moss. The Lamborghinis working together. Baptiste Moulin giving space to Frederick Schandorf, the championship leader for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing. Adam Carroll and Sean Balfe had some good speed as well. The 72 McLaren, once the rain came down, they started to struggle. Joe Osborne and Nick Moss. And then the heavens opened. This was turn 3. Nico Bastian, Florian Schultz into the gravel. They weren't the only one. The Aston Martin also parked in the gravel. Adam Carroll, it was undrivable, he told us this morning. The red flag came out. The race was declared after 39 laps, and Frederick Schandorf and Michele Beretta took the victory. This is the championship as it stands before the 10th race of the championship. Schandorf, Beretta, they are in the lead. And Andy Suchek right behind in 3rd place. Race 2, round 5 of the 2021 International GTOpen Championship. And this is what the grid looks like. Charlie Eastwood starts on pole position for TF Sport in the Aston Martin alongside the Omani Al-Faisal Al-Zubair for Elecna Racing with the 77 Porsche. Carol Bash. 777 starts out of grid 3 for Olymp Racing, and Frederick Schandorf, the championship leader, out of grid 4. Then we go to Adam Carroll in the Balf Motorsport Audi alongside Ollie Milroy, in the McLaren. Baptiste Moulin, the Belgian, and the Norwegian Marcus Pavarud on the 4th row of the grid. Nick Moss in the 72 McLaren out of 9 alongside the impressive AMP driver Christian Kosanowski. 6th row of the grid, Florian Schultz for Antonelli Motorsport, Jan Seifert for HP Racing International, and Dominic Schrammel on the final grid position. So the track, for the moment, is dry. The race has been declared wet. If yesterday was anything to go by, This will be anything from a procedural, anything but a procedural type race. We are expecting rain at around about 2 o'clock, which is only a few minutes from now. It is the tail end of summer here at the Northern Hemisphere as Ollie Milroy goes through in the 7 Inception Racing and McLaren, sharing that car with Brendan Irie. You ride on board with Adam Carroll for Balf Motorsport. Looking for a big result is the driver from Portadown in Northern Ireland. Antonelli Motorsport in the 47. Mercedes, Florian Schultz and Nico Bastian. So the safety car with the lights off will pull into pit lane in just a moment. Charlie Eastwood will lead the field up to the line as the rain starts to fall here at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Through the Jochen Ring curves, Charlie Eastwood in the Aston Martin on pole position under threatening skies. Race 2, round 5, the 2021 International GTOpen Championship. The 5 red lights. They turn to green and we race. Super start from Eastwood as Carol Bash immediately slots into second place. Eastwood with the racing line, Bash on the outside, very close to the back of the Aston Martin as they race up the hill for the first time. Al Faisal Al Zabair. He's lost 1, potentially 2, potentially 3 places as you ride on board with Adam Carroll in the Balf Motorsport Audi. Charlie Eastwood right in the middle of the circuit. Carol Bash is looking racy. The 777 Olymp Racing Mercedes. There's Marcos Pavarotti in the Honda going through. So a clean start. Jan Seifert in the 17 Lamborghini sitting in behind Florian Schultz. On board once again with Carroll. Into the right-hander. They have to be careful in case the rain has picked up in that part of the circuit. And they race down the hill for the first time. This 1 hour race. This is race 2, round 5. The 10th race of the 2021 championship. Charlie Eastwood settles down in the lead. Up the inside goes the impressive AM driver, Christian Kosanowski. Well, he was impressive until he goes around on the opening lap of the race. Was looking to make a move and go through. Lucky to get away with that. Put the rear Michelin tyres into the gravel. Does rejoin. We stay green. The rain falls here at the Red Bull Ring of the GTOpen International Championship. A sensational start, particularly for the 2 poles. Korsanowski going backwards into the gravel, and his countryman, Carol Bash in P2, closing in on the back of the pole sitter, the race leader, Charlie Eastwood. Here's Ollie Milroy behind Adam Carroll, trying to make a move on Carroll, who closes the door, and a McLaren will try and bolt by as they rocket up the hill. Korsanowski so lucky to get away with that. We know the rain is falling very, very lightly. Here in the Austrian countryside, the wipers are on the Aston Martin of TF Sport. That is the corner right there, which turned into a car park yesterday. Baptiste Moulin going through, right ahead of Marcus Pavarotti. Then behind is Florian Schultz, under attack from Jan Seifert. As they race down the back straight, you can see Ollie Milroy getting very close to the back of Adam Carroll. We try and make a move down the inside. No, on the outside, so close, almost pushes the Audi down the hill, turns in, gets the run. Fantastic drive. And the McLaren goes side by side with the Audi. May well take him, but Adam Carroll fights back. A hectic start to the opening stages of race 2 here. One car, one of the leaders, has evidently gone off the road. You can see the dust flying. Milroy cannot go by Carroll just yet. We'll take a look at the replay of the start. Charlie Eastwood from pole position. Immediately to his right, to your left, just eases over to the traditional racing line. Carol Bash around the outside, goes P2. In the background, Korsanowski just ahead of Jan Seifert, who was trying to make the move on Florian Schultz. So lucky to get away with that. Drags the gravel back onto the circuit. Another view of the pole. Of course, the Audi being a mid-engine car, when the rain comes down, it makes it all that more difficult to handle, to control. putting almost 600 horsepower through the rear wheels. The weight in the middle to the back of the car, as opposed to a traditional front engine car. So lucky to get away with that. The gravel drag back onto the circuit. And Christian Korsanowski lives to fight another day. Carol Bash, his countryman, still in P2. 7/10 of a second behind Charlie Eastwood with the race lead. And as the race settles down on the third lap of the race here, Charlie Eastwood, Carol Bash, Frederick Schandorf, Al Faisal Al-Zubair. Then this battle between Adam Carroll and Ollie Milroy. There's Baptiste Molan in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini car 19 just behind. Marcus Pavarud in the 11 Honda. As we were saying in our introduction, there was a jammed rear brake caliper on the left rear side of the car. Team manager for Renault Racing, Mads Fischer, telling us it was a relatively minor issue, but they were frustrated because they had some speed in the car which they could not exploit in qualifying. Marcus Pavarud sharing that car with Jens Renault Moller, the Dane and the Norwegian in the Japanese supercar in the GTOpen International Championship here in Austria. Marcus Pavarud behind Baptiste Molan, ahead of Florian Schultz. He's got the best part of an hour to see what they can do in the sole Japanese entered car just ahead. Ollie Milroy still over the back of Adam Carroll. Interesting conversation this morning with Adam. He said yesterday, first of all, in that part of the circuit, it was undrivable. Of course, they were stuck out there, caught out on the Michelin slick tyres. He said anything above 60, 70 kilometres an hour, absolutely impossible to put near on 600 horsepower, obviously through the slick tyres. It was a slow motion crash, but they were still doing 120, 130 k's an hour. This is the first race back for Balf Motorsport in the Audi. They are struggling somewhat this weekend. Former GTOpen or GTOpen Cup champions from 2017. They're just struggling to get the car to actually turn in. Usually it is a very responsive, very accurately turning in car. They just can't get it to light up the tyres, to get the tyres, the Michelin control slick tyres to bite and get the Audi to turn in. Of course, the Audi traditionally shines on circuits where there are chicanes, such as, I guess, Monza, where we race in 2 weeks' time. That's a fast circuit, but there's a couple of chicanes there, the left to right to left, the weight distribution. That's where the Audi and even the Honda and the Lamborghini, they can really shine here. It's sort of a flowing, fast circuit. Adam Carroll is still in position 5 in the V10 powered Audi. Of course, Audi Sport Italia, they raced with us at the previous round of the series with Lorenzo Ferrari, Riccardo Agostini in a very similar machine. Consistently inside the top 3 as Marcus Pavarud on the outside of Baptiste Moulard. So a fantastic start for race 2 here in Austria as they go down the back straight. Ollie Milroy still on the back of Adam Carroll. He goes to his right, tries to block off the McLaren. Ollie Milroy, will he hang it in there? Has to get out of the throttle. There's nothing but gravel and sand. He'll try the inside, he'll try the outside as they race down the hill. There's Pavarud in the background, right behind the Belgian. Here goes Milroy. Adam Carroll, the Inception Racing Optimum Motorsport McLaren. Right behind him. Of course, that is a turbocharged car. The Audi, naturally aspirated. Balf Motorsport, Adam Carroll with Sean Balf. Last few seasons also racing in the British GT Championship. They're in position 5, car 22 at the moment. Ollie Milroy gets a very wide run as they come onto the straight. In position 6 in car 7, as Charlie Eastwood continues to lead and to pull away from Carol Bash. There is now 2 seconds between the 2 leaders. Frederick Schandorf in P3, that's his teammate behind, Baptiste Moulin. A fantastic start here at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. The Marcus Pavarud, Jens Renault Moller Honda NSX. Back on track to attack. He's got the Lamborghini right ahead. And Florian Schultz for Antonelli Motorsport behind. Still, Milroy cannot find a way by Adam Carroll. A very wide turn in from the Honda. For the moment, it is the sole Japanese entered supercar. The Honda NSX behind the Lamborghini. The Honda locking up the front row of the grid in the Japanese GT 500 Championship, taking place this weekend, also over at Sugo in Japan. And hopefully in the distant future we'll see more entrants from Japan. Of course, Lexus Toyota with us in the past, as was the Nissan GTR. And the good news is that there is a new generation, new spec NSX Honda GT3 car on its way to racetracks around the world in 2022. So the opening stages of the race, Charlie Eastwood continues to lead. This is Ian Silvestrin with you in commentary for race 2, round 5 of the International GTOpen Championship. Once again, joined by Ida Wood. This has been a super start for the race for Charlie Eastwood.
It absolutely has. He's extended his lead by another half a second on that 5th lap of the race. And I was actually outside at the very start of this race. We had spots of rain going all around the circuit, but it was so light that it was pretty much disappearing once it landed on the asphalt. But it would have made it a little bit more slippy, particularly off the line at the start, where we did see a bit of action. Of course, the Audi span as well, the Korzeniowski car at the back of the field. So that potentially could have contributed there. And there is a big cloud hanging over the circuit right now.
It's still reasonably warm here at the Red Bull Ring, around about 20 degrees Celsius.
Yep, and obviously the cars going over the track, they're going to heat up the asphalt as well, and that will make the rain pretty much disappear as soon as it lands, particularly on line. But the cloud isn't going anywhere, so it could repeat its race 1 appearance and bring on a full-on storm. And particularly with the driver change window, the issue we had yesterday was some of the drivers, you know, put their pit stop later in the race just as the track was getting wetter. And then others did it earlier on, but then their tyres were already worn out by the time the rain arrived. So lots of different strategic decisions to make. And of course, there'll be team members on the pit wall looking up and probably watching these replays as well, seeing if any damage comes in from riding those curves particularly hard.
Beautiful slow-mo images coming to us from the team here at GT Sport. The wipers still on the car intermittently of Charlie Eastwood. The gap is out to almost 3 seconds as Carol Bash goes through. Schandorf, there's Al Faisal Al-Zabao. And this 77 Porsche, he was telling us yesterday he expects this to be their worst round of the championship with regard to car setup and car specification. It's not a track where the Porsche is expected to shine.
Yeah, you really need a big engine essentially at a track like this, because the undulation, how much you have to go up, particularly between the first corner and the 4th corner. There's so much uphill, you really just need the power to get there. And the Porsche, very small, very light mid-engine, doesn't quite have that. Whereas the Lamborghini, which you can see, fairly similar design internally, but just so much more powerful.
And also the McLaren as well. The V8 turbocharged car. He still hasn't found a way by Adam Carroll. As Ollie Milroy, as Nick Moss goes down the inside, nicely done. And takes the place away from Jan Seifert, the McLaren versus the Lamborghini. Two of the most exotic, beautiful, spectacular, desirable supercars in the world. They go side by side down the back straight, and the McLaren has taken him. Jan Seifert and a 17 HP Racing International Lambo have to sit in behind. We go on board with Dominic Schrammel in car 15, right behind this battle.
Yep, so they're not just battling for position here, it's for class points as well. And actually the Lamborghini's going to try to dive down the inside, because Nick Moss has gone very wide through turns 5 and turn 6, and they're side by side going down the hill. The Lamborghini has regained that place, so he's back up into 10th place. Nick Moss down to 11th. Could Moss lose another place here? We're still on board with Schrammel. I think he could potentially pick the outside line, but Nick Moss is going to try and go around the outside. Lamborghini into turn 9, thinks better of it. That leaves space on the inside for Schrammel. Can't quite get it in there. But these three are going to be fighting all the way to the end of the lap, and you see the windscreen wipers are on, so it is definitely raining now.
This is as frantic as a touring car race at the moment. The opening stages of race 2 here. Jan Seifert taking the place back. We do have to ask the question if there is a little bit of rain just dropped in the last lap. Also, that was the corner where Christian Korzeniowski ran off the circuit. And you could see when he drove down the inside of the circuit, on the left side of the track, did Seifert to make the place. The dust still did fly, despite Korzeniowski going off the circuit 3 or 4 laps ago. Retakes the place as they dive up into turn 3. Runs very wide, but takes him once again. The McLaren versus the Lamborghini. They race side by side. The GT3 Mercedes just behind. Turns right. Wow, that was a move from Nick Moss.
And all the time they're doing this, they're losing ground to the cars ahead, so it's a 5-second gap to Florian Scholl in 9th place now. Nick Moss, is he going to repeat what occurred on the previous lap, where Suze took a tighter line here, and then as he turned left, the rear end of the car, once it went over the curbs, is a little too wide. He stayed ahead, and we've cut back to the Audi, currently in 5th place. So that is Adam Carroll at the wheel, holding off Ollie Milroy for 5th place overall and 2nd place in the Pro-Am class. They're going to come down the hill into turn 9. Both have their lights on, so it looks like the rain is coming down through this final section. See how slick the track looks. But at the very top, quite literally at the top, probably an altitude change of around 60 meters, it's a lot drier, probably because more sunlight's reaching it as well.
One lap of the rebuilt Red Bull Ring circuit, 4.3 kilometres. Ida, you're from Great Britain. You still refuse to embrace the metric system over there, so 4.3 kilometres, that's what, about 2 and a bit miles?
Yes.
2.5?
Approximately, yeah. And when you're walking it feels far more than that.
Marcus Pavarud goes up the inside of the Belgian. Baptiste Moulin locks up under brakes. Remember, they did have brake issues this morning. And Moulin holds the outside line. And the Norwegian has to tuck back in. Can't take him, that was a nice attempt. And still Adam Carroll with Ollie Milroy behind.
Now, Baptiste Moulin is actually 7 seconds behind the next car in the Pro class. So that's how Faisal Al-Zubair 7 seconds ahead in 4th place. Moulin down in 7th place, and he's got 2 cars ahead of him. Adam Carroll and Ollie Milroy, who are fighting amongst themselves. You can see the windscreen wipers turn back on as they come back down the hill. So particularly slippy here. So although they're closing up the gaps, and the Honda's actually put a wheel on the gravel, so potentially it's getting slipperier up there as well. So that's cost him a bit of ground. He's not going to be able to overtake the Lamborghini at the end of this lap, but Adam Carroll's still holding off Ollie Milroy as he comes to complete the 10th lap of this race.
No signs of jet lag for Brendan Irib, the American, only arriving at the circuit on Friday night. We just got a glimpse of him a few moments ago. He'll be taking over the 7 McLaren from Ollie Milroy when the pit stop window opens. Of course, this race 10 minutes shorter than yesterday. Had that have been the case hypothetically yesterday, and we would have avoided the car park up in turn 3. This is getting very racy. 2x2 car battles is now turning into a 4-car fight. Adam Carroll, Ollie Milroy, Baptiste Moulin and Marcus Pavarud. And we've got 4 different manufacturers. It is the Audi from the McLaren, the Lamborghini and the Honda and the Mercedes as well. 5 different manufacturers now in this battle as Florian Scholz closes the gap, runs off the circuit there in the 47 Antonelli Mercedes. This is the head of that battle which we were just watching, Adam Carroll, under immense pressure as they race down the hill into the right-hander. Turns in, wary in case there has been a slight shower or downpour in the last lap. We said that for the majority of yesterday's race, and many of you were thinking, you're crazy, the track is dry, the sun is shining well 10 minutes towards the end. The heavens opened, and we are expecting rain at about 2 o'clock, which is 5 minutes ago, so it may be any minute now.
Now, Pavarud, who is the Honda at the back of this train, on the previous lap, he actually matched the pace of the cars ahead, even though he went through the gravel between turn 6 and turn 7. So clearly that Honda does have pace, closed onto the rear of the Lamborghini, just like the McLaren has closed onto the back of the Audi once again at the end of this lap. The Lamborghini goes wide out the penultimate corner, and the Renault Racing Honda dives down the inside. That's going to be 7th place for Marcus Pavarud. Baptiste Moulin back down to 8th and continually losing ground to the other Pro Class cars as into turn 1 the McLaren looks again, takes a very, very wide entry into the first corner to try and get past the Audi, but the Audi's just got great traction out the corners and can always maintain the position, and particularly when you're going up the hill to turn 3.
Fantastic move by Marcus Pavarud a few moments ago into the Ockenring curves, coming onto the straight. That's a corner where you cannot pass, but he did. You rarely see a passing move. Take a look at the replay. Baptiste Moulin, well, that's the reason why. He ran wide, a slight error from the Belgian. So perhaps we gave Marcus a little bit too much credit. We'll give some credit to Baptiste Moulin to hang on to the Lamborghini and not throw it into the gravel.
It looked like the rear end had already got loose as he was going through the corner, so it was almost four-wheel drifting. Then he got grip again, allowed the tyres to almost bite into the surface, and then moved again. But at the back of the order, Nick Moss currently has a small gap to Jan Seifert, but on the previous lap, there's 4 cars covered by 1 second towards the back here. So we've got 3 battles, 1 at the front, 1 in the midfield, and 1 4-car battle at the back of the grid as well. And with 41 minutes to go, that means the driver changing zone is only 3 laps away. So we're now looking at Christian Kuzinowski. He is the only AM-class runner. He's in last place, but he's also winning his class. So that's good. Yeah, positives and negatives there.
He had that spin on the opening lap of the race. He's had some fantastic speed. He is the only AM-class runner, as you say, Ida. but he's really been competitive all weekend.
Yeah, once he got lapped yesterday, he actually maintained the pace of the winning driver, who couldn't re-lap him because he was going so quickly. So we're on board now with Dominic Schrammel in 12th. He's only a few tenths behind Jan Seifert and a few tenths ahead of Christian Kozanowski. So here's a sandwich here. It's going to be a bit tricky to overtake the Lamborghini without putting yourself, under pressure from the car behind as well.
There is the green tiger. You can see it written on the back underside of the rear wing. The HP Racing International Lamborghini. A move down the inside from Schrammel. Goes very deep under brakes, does Jan Seifert, and holds him off. And Korsanowski in the background recovering from that spin, and he's catching up to this battle. The sun comes out to shine for the moment as Schrammel dives down the inside. Again, Jan Seifert very deep under brakes. The Lamborghini is a very late braking car despite being one of the bigger, heavier cars in the race. Schrammel says, no problem, I'll try the outside. What a move by the German, and he takes him. Nicely done by Dominic Schrammel. Jan Seifert moves back a place. Christian Korsanowski in the background, catching the both of them, recovering after a first lap spin in the 5 Olymp Racing Audi. Look at this. Seifert on the inside. Dominic Schrammel, he had the grip in the Mercedes, just holds the high line. That was a beautiful move by the German.
And the Lamborghini actually rode over the curb and got loose at the front end, lost a lot of traction on the exit of the corner, which has allowed Schrammel to get alongside. So brilliant move there. Actually, Nick Moss ahead of them. They were closing in, but then Moss set the fastest first sector of anyone in this race. Then personal best in sector 3, so he's pulled away by a second. He's about 4.9 seconds behind Florian Scholz, who's currently in 9th place, and those are for class positions as well as overall positions, whereas Kozanowski at the very back here is just driving on his own, essentially. I imagine he'll get to stand on the podium on his own as well, which would be quite fun. Charlie Eastwood, 5 seconds clear at the head of this race, 3.5 minutes to go until the driver change window begins. So he's currently lapping a 90-second lap. It'll be 2 laps and then it will open, unless he strategically slows down a little bit for those next 2 laps, and then he can open that window straight away.
Most of the drivers, or most of the teams, I should say, because it is a team manager generally that dictates when they will pit. Most teams pitting very early yesterday as soon as the pit stop window opened, which was something of a surprise.
Yeah, often you want to, if you're pitting for an undercut, you want to get yourself out of traffic, because if an overcut, then you know you've got the pace of the first driver, and particularly because we have a Pro-Am class here, you've got a Pro driver and an Am driver. Often the Am driver in the Lamborghini gets very loose there going to turn 1. The Am driver will want to drive longer if it's a second stint, because they need to get used to track conditions, where the Pro driver might be able to jump in, whatever the conditions are, and be on the pace straight away. So you've always got to factor that in as well. And of course, you've got the success handicap. So if you're 10 seconds ahead of someone, but your success handicap is 20 seconds, you're going to be dropped 10 seconds behind. So lots and lots of strategic elements in International GTOpen.
The battle for second and third was on your screen as we go back to Adam Carroll in the 22 Audi. He's one of the more experienced drivers in the field, incredibly experienced in fact, has raced absolutely everything, including DTM, the German Touring Car Championships, European Formula 3, a decade and a half ago, a stint in IndyCar as well. And with Team Ireland, he was the A1 GP champion in 2009. The Ferrari Challenge International World Final champion a couple of seasons ago. Was not real confident this morning, but they've made a couple of changes in the Balf Motorsport Audi. He's hooked up. They said that he would not turn yesterday. They could not get the grip. They could not get the tyres to bite. But they certainly found something here this afternoon, because he's holding off Ollie Milroy, despite the fact that the 7 McLaren is the fastest car here on our timing screen in a straight line. This is the fastest car outright. This is Charlie Eastwood, who now has 5.5 seconds over Carol Bash. The Tom Ferrier Motorsport, or TF Sport car, in the lead. This is the championship leader, Frederick Schandorf. He will hand over to Michele Beretta. And still, it is Carroll, Milroy, Pavarud and Baptiste Moulin. Very wide turn in from Milroy to try and get the run up the hill. Just reminding you what we said a moment ago, the McLaren is the fastest car here consistently in a straight line, according to the speed trap on our timing screen.
Yeah, so that's by 4 kilometers an hour, and the speed trap's not at the end of the straight, so there'll be an even bigger speed gain by the time they get to the braking zone. So that is a big advantage for the McLaren. However, the Audi's very strong on the brakes and very strong on traction exiting corners as well. So that's what's keeping ahead. The Honda, slightly different design as well. I think that car with Pavarud at the wheel really does have the pace to get past these two, but it's running in the dirty air. It doesn't always look confident.
They missed much of qualifying this morning, but he looks good here this afternoon. The Norwegian, one of the lesser experienced drivers in the field. He's still quite young. Marcus Pavarud, coming up from touring car racing, One Make Racing, GT4 Euro champ a couple of seasons ago, but now racing at GTOpen International and mixing it with the best of them. Milroy and Carroll, they're extremely experienced, just ahead of him. And Baptiste Moulin for Vincenzo Sospiri racing behind. Now Adam Carroll has to go defensive. Ollie Milroy on the outside as they race down into the Jochen Ring curve sideways on the entry, and we can see one of the teams down in pit lane preparing for an early stop. Adam Carroll under immense pressure from Ollie Milroy.
Yeah, and it's a Lamborghini that was at the back of this 4-car train. That's now become 3 cars. So the number 19 Vincenzo Sospiri car is in the pits as well. So that'll be handing over to Yuki Nomoto as his Mulan gets out. Yeah.
Florian Schultz in the background. He'll hand over to Nico Bastian. The Vincenzo Sospiri racing team go to work. Baptiste Moulin steps out.
There's Nick Moss going past as well in the Optimum McLaren. So we have 4 cars pitting at the moment. And we've got another 9 on track. Charlie Eastwood leads by 5.87 seconds. Further second behind him is Frederick Schandorf, and Schandorf's had quite a few track limits warnings, so that could factor into this lead battle as well. And looks like a fairly fast stop. We haven't actually seen anyone throwing the seat inserts this weekend. The previous rounds we've seen some pretty bad attempts at people throwing the seats out, but this weekend they've been very clean, very calm. Maybe the race controller told them that you can't really throw things in pit lane. As Adam Carroll is coming under sustained pressure, maybe those tyres aren't biting, as he said in the morning, because the McLaren was very, very close to his gearbox going through turns 4 and 5.
We'll see if any of the 3 drivers on your screen elect to dive down into pit lane this time. As Yuki Nomoto exits the pits, he's down in 11th place. That are Nico Bastian and Joe Osborne. Adam Carroll with Milroy right behind. Will they dive down into the pits? I can tell you Frederick Schandorf has. He's now in the pits in the second Vincenzo Sospiri racing Lamborghini. So Frederick Schandorf gets out. Michele Beretta gets in. The championship leader, yesterday's race winners.
Beretta was doing some star jumps to warm up there just before we got in the car, but the team actually came into the pit lane with their tyres, 2 sets of tyres the last lap, but obviously only one of the Lambos came in, rushed back in, and they came back out. So lots going on there, and there's another Lamborghini in front of them, which would be the number 17 crew. So that is handing over to Gerhard Teresa in the in the solo Lamborghini for that team.
HP Racing International. Jan Seifert gets out. Gerhard Teresa, the Austrian here in Austria, and gets in. The Green Tiger 17 Lamborghini. I'll tell you an interesting story in a moment about that.
Charlie Eastwood's just set his personal best first sector. Previous lap was the fastest lap of anyone, so I imagine with the pace he's showing right now, he's going to want to stay out as long as possible, because he's only extending his advantage. And although he's got the Mercedes behind him, and we know a pit stop here is essentially a lap, you can go a lap down, it doesn't look like he's got too much traffic to handle, particularly if the cars ahead of him have already pitted. Then, and actually the Audi has got a lot of pressure though. The McLaren is coming all over him, so Ollie Milroy still attacking Adam Carroll. I think they almost made contact there. He's looking at turn 9, thinks better of it. We can tell who's going to go into the pits, because normally they take a far tighter line as they approach through that corner. They haven't done that this time round. The Honda, I think, cleverly keeping a gap there, because in case something goes wrong, they don't want to be a bit too close.
Not this time. Another lap. They stay out. Carroll, Milroy and Pavarud. They've got good pace. And I think Ollie Milroy wants to take Adam Carroll. They know each other so well, having raced on the tracks around the world in various categories. GT racing, sports cars, even open wheelers back in the day. Marcus Pavarud in the background. He's right there behind them. And it looks as though Ollie Milroy wants the place on track as Christian Korsanowski dives down into the pits. He'll hand over to Stanislav Jedlinski in the 5 Olymp Racing Audi. Here he is. Impressive performance from Christian Korsanowski. Stanislav Jedlinski gets in.
And he's got an open style rally helmet.
Did see that on the grid.
That's pretty cool, that is. Don't see much of those in sports car racing.
Or touring car racing for that matter either. Adam Carroll, will he pull into the pits this time? Ollie Milroy dives down the inside. He might well take him on the track before they stop. Adam just gently eases across and closes the door on the McLaren driver. He tries again. Gets out of the throttle. Adam Carroll, those Michelin tyres have cried enough. He's pushed them to the limit. The rain that was starting to fall at the start of the race has not eventuated. We'll see if they turn in. Pavarud in the background. A tighter line, not this time, another lap.
Yeah.
So Charlie Eastwood leads from Bash, Al Faisal Al Zubair, and then this battle, Carroll, Milroy, and Marcus Pavarud.
The issue there is you have to slow down slightly at turn 9 to then get it turned round to a tighter angle to the pit lane. He couldn't do that because the McLaren was literally on his gearbox. So even if he wanted to pit, it would have been too dangerous to. He has to stay out until he's at least got a margin to the McLaren, a bit like the gap he has now. When they were coming through turn 9 last time round, it was not safe to pit. Now the fastest lap has just been set by Yuki Nomoto in the Vincenzo Spiri Lamborghini, so that would suggest that pitting is the right move, but that's only 2/10 faster than what Charlie Eastwood's doing, and his tyres are 19 laps old.
Yes, the Aston Martin team, they're looking good for a victory here this afternoon. Carol Bash still in second place. Well, the rain that was forecast, thankfully, I know we have spoken about it multiple times, but it has been a big talking point. And if you saw the end of race 1 yesterday, you'll know why. A torrential thunderstorm saw the red flag brought out. We backtracked to lap 39. Chandorf and Beretta, they were declared the race winners. As Beretta, first lap out of the pits, he's down in position 8. Behind his teammate, incidentally, Yuki Nomoto. So this is the race leader, Charlie Eastwood. And Michele Beretta is behind, a lap down at the moment, but he has yet still to pit.
And Beretta won yesterday's race, so would have had a larger success handicap than the Aston Martin will when it eventually pits. Now, Faisal Al Zubair has just pitted from third place, was 18 seconds behind. Will also be serving a smaller handicap, I expect, than the Aston Martin. So things could close up 65 seconds. Although, of course, with this being a shorter race, we do have shorter pit stop times as well. And I think that was that a seat being thrown there?
He threw it so quickly, I could not tell.
Looked too small to be a seat.
Al Faisal Al Zubair, he's only a slight driver, quite a young driver. He steps out, Andy Soucek steps in. Al Faisal Al Zubair, the last few seasons racing in GT3 Carrera Cup, he says this car is very similar to what he's been racing in Carrera Cup International Racing. Hands over to Andy Soucek, the half Austrian, the half Spaniard. He's got 2 home races, including this round 5 of the championship and the season final on October 23 at Barcelona in Catalonia. So Charlie Eastwood, last time around, a 1:29.847. Yuki Nomoto, the fastest lap a few moments ago, with 1:29.864. So virtually identical times, and he stays out once again. This is a good comparison because behind is the 63 Lamborghini of Michele Beretta. There is Nico Bastian in the background. A lap difference between these two as we look at Carol Bash in position 2. We spoke about Carol yesterday. He's only a young driver, the 2015 World Kart Racing champion. He has gone wheel to wheel with the likes of Max, Charles, everyone else virtually of his age on the Formula 1 grid and beaten them as well.
Yep, and now he's driving such a different car, long nose, a lot of weight on the front axle, very, very different cars, and very different single seats as well. The Audi McLaren battle is still going on, the Honda's watching on. Adam Carroll, very, very defensive through turn 1. He almost brakes and then comes off the brakes and just kind of makes his use of as much track space as possible, so McLaren has nowhere to go. Further back, Yuki Nomoto's just set the fastest lap. Joe Osborne in the McLaren is set to match it now. Nomoto is going faster than our leading cars as the Audi has to defend again at turn 3. But his Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lambo teammate, Michele Beretta, is only going 1/10 a lap faster than Charlie Eastwood, and his tyres are around 19 laps newer. So Eastwood's got this great barometer of how, what pace he needs to be running at to know what his margin is when he pits. Now we saw Soucek come out, he's in 7th place, so he's actually come ahead of Nomoto. So I imagine he's going to jump up to 2nd overall once all of the pit stops are played out.
So more than half an hour this battle has raged between the 3 cars on your screen. And Adam Carroll, ahead of Ollie Milroy, runs very wide, almost into the gravel. In 3rd place at the moment. We'll see if they dive down into the pits. I'd suggest this is the lap for Adam Carroll. He goes on the middle of the circuit. He stays right, pulls into the pit lane. I suspect that Ollie Milroy knew it and was just trying to give him a hard time. So Adam Carroll, a brilliant drive in the Balf Motorsport Audi Car 22. The Northern Irishman pulls down into pit lane and he will hand over to Sean Balf. Comes to an immediate exact stop, jumps out of the car. Does Adam, Sean jumps in. As the number 15 Mercedes also pulls down into pit lane. So Ollie Milroy assumes third place and Marcus Pavarud is now in fourth.
It's going to be very interesting to see what pace Ollie Milroy can now do, because he's been stuck behind the Audi for at least 10 laps, and that's, you know, he's been trying to overtake him, so clearly he does have the pace. But with the tyres being as old as they are now, can you really show it at this point in the race? Now we'll go back to Charlie Eastwood, leading still by 8.5 seconds, ahead of Carol Badge. Now 9 seconds. The Lamborghini still behind, and that is the Mercedes, which is of course a lap down, and he's going into the pit lane. That required the Lamborghini to exceed track limits there. I think the stewards will look on that, you know, nicely, because he was clearly doing it to get round the Aston Martin as it entered the pit lane and was not to make an advantage. Now let's see what the handicap time is for this Aston Martin car.
A brilliant opening stamp from Charlie Eastwood. He steps out, Sandahan steps in. They drove superbly yesterday to second place. They had speed in the dry, they had speed in the wet. They finished in P2. They're running in P1 now. They had almost a lap over Michele Beretta. In fact, exactly one lap as the two poles. Carol Bash jumps out, Marcin Jedlinski jumps in. The 777 AMG Mercedes for Olymp Racing. Down into pit lane also is the McLaren, Brendan Irib to get into car 7. Ollie Milroy will step out. So they've left it right to the end of the pit stop window, or near enough to it.
And that means, given this is the last lap, that they can change, and hopefully the Honda doesn't have any further brake troubles. We saw when they were changing wheels yesterday, things didn't quite go to plan. They had a wheel gun failure, and then they had a brake issue on Saturday. There's actually a lot of brake dust that came out that rear left brake, which was the issue yesterday. Now we're following Al Zubair, who was handed over to Andy Soucek. Coming through the final corner, the Aston Martin is already exiting the pits, but will be at a lower speed. We haven't seen the Porsche come past us, so I expect Sam Dehaan's going to be leading this race by around 5 or 6 seconds.
This will be close. He has got the lead. Marcin Jedlinski in the background. In fact, Al-Faisal Al-Zubair, who did hand over to Andy Soucek.
Set the fastest lap of the race at 1:29.
He's in the background.
5:41.
The Aston Martin team of TF Sport, run by Tom Ferrier. They've done it nicely. They are controlling the pace. The pit stop window is just about to come to a close. Sam Dehaan, last few seasons racing in British GT, takes over from Charlie Eastwood, who's done a sterling job behind the wheel. There's the Honda coming back out behind the Balf Motorsport Audi. So we'll see where they shake out. The order to the left of your screen, Sam Dehaan behind the wheel, car 69 in the lead, having taken over from the race leader, his teammate, Charlie Eastwood. Aston Martin, position 1.
And the McLaren at the back of this picture. So we've got the Audi, which was in front of the McLaren all race, and now the Honda has got between those two. So I imagine if I'd just taken over that car as Brendan Irey, I'd be a bit annoyed that, you know, you spent the first stint behind the Audi and now you've got to get past another car just to get back behind that car. Now, Andy Soucek, 8 seconds behind, 1 second behind Marcin Jedlinski, who has colder tyres because the Porsche pitted 2 laps earlier, so that should help it, and we can see how cold they are. Didn't have the grip to get around turn 9, so I imagine the stewards will look at that for track limits, and coming actually out of the final corner, the Porsche is going to draw alongside.
Marcin Jedlinski with a slight error. Andy Soucek, much more experienced, with all due respect. And the Austrian Spaniard, the 77 Porsche, takes him and moves up into second place. Sam Dehaan continues to lead. We'll check the gap as they sort themselves out. It's round about 7 seconds. So the Aston Martin team, really a net loss for the moment, around about 2 seconds. So really nothing in a 1 hour endurance race. Andy Soucek in second place. A slight error. Marcin Jedlinski runs very wide on still cold Michelin tyres. Andy Soucek down the inside into the Niki Lauda turn 1 and takes him, the Porsche, up into second place.
And behind these two are the two Vincenzo Suspiria Lamborghinis. Beretta in the car that was driven by Schandorf was way ahead in the first stint, but now he's behind. The Honda could overtake the Audi here because they've got the Audi, well, they've got the second Audi, the AM Class 1, holding them up as traffic. So Jedlinski is now a lap down. but that has actually compromised the second Audi R8 on this grid because the Honda is drawing alongside on the run down turn 4. Are they going to stay and keep it clean here?
Side by side, Sean Balfe and Jens Renault Moller, the Audi on the inside. They almost touch. What a move by Jens Renault Moller. Can he hold it? For the moment, the answer is yes. Pushes the Audi into the grass. Sean Balfe had nowhere to go, had to get out of the throttle. Nicely done by Jens Renault Moller. The Honda NSX goes by the Audi R8. That was a very nice move by the Dane. And now he moves up into position 7. Balfe back to 8. There's Brendan Irie behind. In the McLaren as Sam Dahan settles in at the head of the pack. Andy Suchak in second. Jedlinski in the 777 Mercedes. Yukinomoto, Michele Beretta, Bastian, and then the driver on your screen in the 11 NSX Honda. Jens Renault Moller with this fantastic move down the back straight at over 250 k's an hour. They were side by side. There was just centimetres between these two supercars. Jens Renault Moller on the outside did not lift, did not flinch, was not going to be intimidated. Used every piece of the ripple strip. On the exit of the track, Sean Balfe on the grass on the inside. Wow, how close was that? And the Honda goes by the Audi.
Yeah, the Honda had to leave the door open at turn 4 to allow the Audi to come through, but obviously running that tightly, obviously he has a slower line. The new fastest lap set by Beretta, now 2.4 seconds behind Yuki Nomoto in 4th place. There's 6 seconds behind Martin Jedlinski, and here is our leading car, Sam Dahan, 6.96 seconds ahead of everyone, and we've got confirmation that all of the pit stops went to plan, all the success handicaps were met. The sun is shining bright. We had a little bit of rain at the start of this race, but 38 minutes in, it's completely sunny. Imagine the track temperature has increased a lot more as well, and that's going to help some of the AM drivers who have jumped in because it's going to be a lot more readable grip levels, and particularly when the tyres are cold, that makes it easier to understand where you need to push and where you can't push, particularly with so much marbles from previous sessions. We've had 3 single-seater series running today. We've had touring cars as well, so that's all put rubber on the track, which builds up and makes it very slippy offline.
Yes, our sister series, the Euro Formula Open F3 Spec Championship. Race 3 for them coming your way in just a few moments. Make sure you join us for that. I know they're expensive, but I have to splash out and buy a new iPhone. And I'll tell you why, because the weather app on the Android phone I'm using is obviously dead set useless. We had rain predicted half an hour ago, but you can see there is brilliant sunshine here in the Austrian countryside. And it looks as though we will get through without a repeat of the downpour that we experienced in race 1 yesterday. You ride on board with Gerhard Twereza.
He was a few seconds behind 2 laps ago, but was closing in rapidly with the battles going on ahead, and now he is right on the gearbox of Brendan Irie, going for 9th place now. This is a Pro-Am class battle. We've got Martin Jedlinski, who is leading that class by some margin. Jens Renault Moller is holding the final podium position there, and then he's got just a 1.4 second gap to Sean Balfe, who's closing in. So all of these drivers here in this picture are going for 3rd place in class, as well as 7th place overall in the race. Back on board with racing, you can see the sun shining through into the cockpit, lighting up everything, the race logic, data logger, the very useful laminated card telling us who we're on board with, which not all series do, which is a great shame because it's incredibly useful for fans and the commentators, of course.
Yes, obviously, particularly for touring cars and GT racing and sports cars.
Yeah, and seeing the rear end of this McLaren is going to be very useful as well, because you can see, how the weight moves off the car when it's on the brakes, when it's obviously accelerating at corners, it's got the speed advantage. You can see if that's in the initial acceleration phase or if it's top end speed, and then you can tell your team that information and know where that car is strongest and where you can then plot an overtaking maneuver.
Sean Balfe doing a good job, of course. Balfe Motorsport, they won the 2017 Pro-Am Championship. Sean driving in that year, which is now 4 years ago, with Rob Bell. Balfe Motorsport, his own team, but that was with a McLaren, not an Audi, and it was the previous spec McLaren, the 650S, which was quite a successful racing car. Also winning the Bathurst 12-hour in 2000.
And with Shane Van Gisbergen and Rob Bell and Kevin Estra, I think. Potentially, that was 2016 or 2017. Great year for McLaren.
I should know it, given that that race is in my own home country. As Sean Balfe dives down the inside, this battle rages on. And the Lamborghini goes down the inside and takes Sean. Nice move by Gerhard Twereza. 2016, I think it is. Because my
Yeah.
friend does now own that car.
Oh, very nice.
Name dropping. Yeah, better not mention his name.
Abara Brent
I'm sure
may
you
have
won't
been
mind,
the
Michael.
fourth driver. Yeah, well, it's, you know, the McLaren evolution, because at the MP412C, when they relaunched their sports car arm in 2012, now Andy Soucek's in the pits. This is an unscheduled pit stop because
is.
the driver change has already occurred. It looks like they're bolting on a new set of
Did they have a
tyres.
puncher? Yep, left rear destroyed. So he's obviously run over debris. That will certainly cost them a chance of victory here this afternoon. A new left rear Michelin goes on.
And it's going to have implications on the title battle as well, because Soucek is going for the driver's title against the Vincenzo Sospiri Lambos, and he was ahead of them, and now he's dropped behind. And we're now on board with, well, no, looking at Marcin Jedlinski with Yuki Nomoto behind. Nomoto had set rapid laps for the last 10 laps since he's been in the car, and he's now ahead of Jedlinski. Second place overall. Doesn't change the class positions though. Jedlinski is still winning the Pro-Am class by a handy 8 seconds.
Fabulous move by Yuki Nomoto down the inside. As we go back a lap prior, Sean Balfe tried to make a move on the McLaren, but lost a place on the exit. Brendan Irie going through, Gerhard Torreza.
He's gone for the same thing twice, braked very late and tried to turn it around a penny. Look at his left hand, it's all the way to the right. He's trying to turn it as tightly as it can do, but in a sports car, they're heavy, they're big, you can't really do that. And that just allowed the Lamborghini to slip in, and that
Wow.
is a total tyre failure.
Well,
now,
the only fortunate thing is it happened at the right part of the circuit.
now, if it was debris, we possibly would have seen that on track and the marshals would have reported it. I'd expect it possibly be from the curbs.
The Michelin, we know they build a brilliant tyre. They do not fail without some sort of outside issue, let's say.
And we do set minimum, maximum pressures to ensure that during the race, particularly when it warms up from a cold start, and the air in the tyre kind of expands, or the opposite of expanding, I've forgotten the word, it makes sure it's safe and you reduce the chances of failures there. We've seen that occur in Formula One, such as at Baku, where pressures get too high and then you have failures like Max Verstappen. So we're now looking at the battle. Brendan Irie 7th, Gerhard Torreza in 8th, Andy Soucek is now in 9th. Now, I don't think they changed all the tyres on that Porsche, so he's got a little bit of a tyre advantage, but only on one corner. But he is certainly the fastest driver of these three. We know from the past and we know from this weekend. You see the huge rear spoiler of that car shaking as the Audi and the McLaren behind are going side by side. So that is Sean Balfe being overtaken by Joe Osborne. So he's dropped down to 11th. He was in 7th place 2 laps ago, and he's now down to 11th, which has had big implications, of course, in the Pro-Am battle as well.
Joe Osborne, of course, was very quick yesterday, so really probably no surprise to see Joe go through in the 72 McLaren. And I just have to finish a point. It was indeed 2016 that Shane Van Gisbergen with Alvaro Parente and Jono Webb. They took the victory in the 650S McLaren. I know there's so many of our fans that like us to get those details right.
Yeah, and then Shane went and won at Silverstone with Kevin in the car, because I was there. Great race. Soucek's now made his move up to 8th place, so he is 43 seconds away from Sam Tahan, but a full 30 seconds away from Michele Beretta. He wants to get back onto the podium in the pro class. That is his main target from now on.
Meanwhile, Sam Tahan, he's pulling away as you look at this battle with Michele Beretta on the inside of Marcin Jedlinski, dives down the inside as they race up the hill, and the Lamborghini goes through and takes the Mercedes, and he's now into 3rd place. So we've got pro cars now 1, 2, 3. Michele Beretta, the series leader, in position 3. His teammate is ahead. And Sam Tahan, he's driving away. You can see the gap. It is 14 seconds between the Aston Martin and the first of the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghinis. In fact, his teammate's just ahead. Will we see team orders? 12 minutes, 22 left on the clock. The dying stages of race 2, round 5 of the International Open GT Championship. Gerhard Torreza on the outside of Andy Soucek. After that stop, he's fought his way back up into 8th place. It won't be a podium. It certainly won't be a win for the 77 Lechner Racing Porsche here this afternoon. At the moment, Andy is in 8th place. Gerhard drops back. Does the Austrian here in Austria. As the other Austrian, half Spaniard, Andy Soucek, just tries to salvage as many points as possible. Remember, he sits 2nd in the series. And it's another one as he goes by and takes Brendan Irie the following lap. On the charge is Andy Soucek. Up into 7th place, there is Frederick Schandorf. Give us a wave, Frederick. He probably can't hear us because these thundering GT3 cars make an almighty racket, particularly with the noise ricocheting off the grandstand here at the Red Bull Ring.
On board with Teresa, so he's in 9th place, 1/10 of a second behind Brendan Irie. Can barely see any of the track. He was so close to the rear of the McLaren. And look how far off the track he goes before going to turn 1. They want as wide an entry as possible, so you have a straight line on the exit. And admittedly, did it badly. They went completely over the exit curbs, lost that ground, lost a bit of traction, whereas the McLaren, you can see the straight line advantage of that McLaren. It's just pulling away up the hill. Not going to be close enough to attack the car in front, which is, of course, Andy Soucek. But that's evident. You can see the difference between all the cars here and their strengths and their weaknesses purely from going on these onboards.
Yuki Demoto, Michele Beretta, will they change position at the moment? The Japanese driver is in 2nd place ahead of his teammate who critically is in P1 in the championship. Sam DeHaan, he's looking good for a victory here. Together with Charlie Eastwood in the 69 Aston Martin. Just over 10 minutes remaining here in race 2. TF
Charlie
Sport.
Eastwood.
Yep.
He was very happy after qualifying this morning. I think pretty much every driver is happy being on low fuel going around this track because there's only a few corners to nail, so when you do get it right, it's very rewarding.
Charlie Eastwood also racing in the European Le Mans Series in, I think this season, last season, GT3. All sorts of championships, super experienced, and great to have him back with us in the GTOpen International Championship.
And he's done a bit of mileage in the Euroformula car as well.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, so he's done a lot of driving this year and last year. We're going to look at the battle between the McLaren and the Lamborghini. Now, the McLaren did have that straight line speed advantage, but the Lambo does look closer this time by, actually on their fastest laps. Previous time round, it was that first sector where he made the gain, but then he couldn't claw it back in the final 2. And the Porsche's pulled away by some margin now. And Joe Osborne, he is a few seconds behind, 1.8 seconds behind, but is closing in. And we know the pace Joe Osborne had yesterday is race-winning pace, essentially. So I imagine he's going to close in on these two fairly quickly.
Forgive me for being overly partial and overly patriotic here, but I told you about the 17 Lamborghini, the Green Tiger. So many motorsport fans all around the world back in the Group C touring car days in Australia, in my home country. The 17 Greens Tough Ford Falcon of Dick Johnson. It was number 17 as well. That was the Greens Tough Falcon, and now we've got the Green Tiger, and they were both number 17, both painted green. That's the connection. A little bit of deja vu here at the Red Bull Ring, nearly 4 decades on.
That is very, very nice stats. I hope someone can send us a picture of that on social media.
It's a very famous car.
Yeah, it sounds cool. So we've got the Aston Martin still in the lead. Looks like there's a bit of cloud cover at turn 3 now. 8 minutes to go. I don't think the rain will arrive as it did yesterday. 11.79 second lead over Yuki Nemoto. And this is a battle for 4th place. It is a battle for 4th place, actually. So Marcin Jedlinski inherited the Pro-Am class lead by some margin, but now he's under pressure from the fellow Mercedes, and he's gone very wide into turn 3, and he's conceded that position, and very slow on the exit as well. Has he got a bit of an issue, or is it just a simple driver error? They're not expecting to be under pressure. And I think it was a 10-second margin when he inherited that car. So that is a new class leader, Nico Bastian.
Nico Bastian, a super driver, started the season, as we mentioned in our broadcast yesterday, a 5th place in the Dubai 24-hour race at the start of the year back in January. A lot of experience racing various GT cars, not just the Mercedes. Bastian for Antonelli Motorsport. And he moves by into 4th place now, top of the Pro-Am standings, 4th outright. And he's only 6 seconds behind Michele Beretta, who still sits in 3rd. Yuki Nemoto has not backed off yet, wants 2nd place. Does the Japanese driver. Interestingly, Yuki Nemoto having dinner last night with Frederick Schandorf. Teammates, of course, for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, but in the 2 different cars, and he may well take points out of his teammates Beretta and Schandorf as they race for the championship. The only consolation is their closest rival for the 2021 International GTOpen title is Andy Soucek, who had that disastrous stop a few moments ago to replace the left rear. Andy Soucek, car 77, is down in position 7. The dying stages, under 7 minutes remaining, as Tua Razor puts the left rear slightly into the grass as they race by our commentary position. Here at the Red Bull Ring, down into the Niki Lauda curve 1. Look at the racing line. It is off the track. It has been getting wider and wider all weekend.
definitely getting darker as well, because the Lambo's got its lights on, so has the McLaren in front, the number 7 of Brendan Irie. Now 4 seconds behind Andy Soucek. Joe Osborne, the fastest sector times as he closes in. And further back there is Sean Balfe in the Audi. Audi was ahead of this train. He was up in 7th place 8 laps ago. Now he's down in 11th, 6 seconds behind Joe Osborne. So not a great race for the Balfe Motorsport Audi. And at the front, we do have an ever-growing margin between our top 2 cars as well.
On board with Gerhard Theresa, locks up ever so slightly into the Roush curve as they race down the hill. We expect there to be 4 laps remaining at the conclusion of this one. Sam DeHaan, 12 seconds ahead of Yuki Nomoto. So the victory is potentially still on for Nomoto and Vincenzo Sospiri Racing if the car on your screen does have an issue, if the driver does make a mistake, but that's really unlikely. They have been a class act all weekend. They finished 2nd yesterday in the rain. They had tremendous pace in the dry and in the wet and in the damp conditions. They started from pole position. They took qualifying pole this morning by 0.4 of a second. They have driven away from the pack. Yuki Nomoto in 2nd place, the driver from Tokyo, Japan. In the Italian supercar here in Austria, there's his teammate, Michele Beretta, P3 in the race, P1 in the 2021 International GTOpen Championship. Nomoto from Beretta, Yuki Nomoto 11.988 seconds behind the Brit. Sam DeHaan looking at a victory, is TF Sport in the 69 Aston Martin.
Yeah, and behind our top 3, we have the Pram class battle, and this is the battle for 4th in that class. Brendan Irie leads Gerhard Theresa and Joe Osborne. Joe Osborne has been the fastest of the trio over the last 3 laps, and now he's in the dirty air. He's actually slowing down a bit, and we're back on board with Theresa. We can see all the steering inputs he's putting in here. A little bit of turning left going to the corner because we want a wider line. As the McLaren in front picks up a bit of dirt onto the windscreen, you can see how it's kind of scratched it there a little bit on the protective cover. Theresa has spent most of this race looking at the rear of McLaren, I think.
The warning flag is going out to car 11, Jens Renault Moller. In position 6, that's just for track limits. Mind you, we did exceed it on turns 1, 9 and 10. Fairly punishing the white lines around here in the Honda, still in position 6. So it's been a good run from Moller and Pavarud in the 11 NSX. Theresa on his home circuit in the GTOpen International Championship. The 2022 calendar to be announced imminently. Stay tuned, check out the official website of GTOpen International. And also our sister series as well, the Euro Formula Open F3 Spec Championship. Their final race of the weekend, race 3 coming your way. At the checkered flag of this race to round 5, the GTOpen International Championship, as Joe Osborne, who was quick yesterday, cannot find a way by the Lamborghini just ahead. 3 minutes 20 left on the clock. The gap, 11.5 seconds. Joe Osborne, the fastest driver on the circuit in a straight line last time round. A purple straight line sector through the speed trap. And you can see that's no joke at all. That's no exaggeration. He closes right up on the back of the Lamborghini, which is very good under brakes. We saw it 5 or 6 laps ago. A fantastic move by Yuki Nomoto at the top of the hill. Went down the inside, pushed the brake pedal through the floor, and that took the Japanese driver up into position 2, where he still stays. In fact, he's pulling away from his teammate Michele Beretta. You can see the gap, just over 4 seconds.
Bit of a redemption for Nomoto because it wasn't a particularly brilliant stint in the car yesterday, and he had a few errors at Imola as well, so it's good that he's learning and he's getting there, because of course the Lamborghini Juniors are in these Vincenzo Sospiri cars, so they've got official Lamborghini driver status. And looking at the 3rd Lamborghini on this grid now, he was defending from the McLaren at turn 4 on the previous lap. We're going to hopefully follow them as they go all the way up there, but between the 2 straights from turn 3 and turn 4, and I guess from here to turn 3 as well actually, it kinks a lot, so you don't actually have to do any turning, but you can cover off the inside line and the outside line while remaining in a straight line. And if you've got a very wide car like the Lamborghini, that's all you have to do to stop someone from overtaking you. We look at Jens Renault Moller now in 6th place, so Andy Soucek has closed within 2.2 seconds. Now remember, Soucek pitted for a 2nd time in this race. He flashes the AM-class Audi to let him by, but he hasn't let him by. 2nd race in succession, this Audi has been very persistent in its response to blue flags. He's now allowed Soucek past.
no problem for Andy, who just dives down the inside of Stanislav Jedlinski, who is doing a good job, the air driver, and the 511 Racing Audi. Fastest lap of the race, incidentally, quite a few tours ago now, for Michele Beretta, a 129.169. They're in the 130s, 131s now. They're not doing this pace at the end of the race. And it's looking good for Sam DeHaan and Charlie Eastwood to take victory in the 10th race of the 2021 season. There's Andy Soucek in position 7 at the moment. We'll check the gap to Jens Renault Moller. Still some distance up the road. Around about 100 metres as the Honda flashes by. 2 seconds exactly, so another place. It would be valuable points for the Austrian Spaniard in the 77. The Porsche from the legendary Walter Lechner racing team, the famous Walter Lechner racing team. That puncher cost them any chance of a victory. It's just a salvage job for Andy Soucek. Second in the championship. And P7 here this afternoon. At best, he'll be 6th as Nico Bastian up the inside and takes Michele Beretta. That's for 3rd place. On the dying lap of the dying stages of the race, Nico Bastian has gone through and taken Michele Beretta. He's done it nicely. He's done it easily. Beretta limping to the flag. So the pro drivers 1, 2, 3 are now 1, 2 and 4. That came out of nowhere. The checkered flag is about to wave. Sam DeHaan, Charlie Eastwood dominate race 2. They win here at GTOpen International at the Red Bull Ring here in Austria. The Aston Martin takes victory. Yuki Namoto comes across the line in 2nd place with that move on the last lap of the race. What a sensation! Nico Bastian takes P3 away from the 63 Lamborghini of the series leaders, the championship leaders, Michele Beretta and Frederick Schandorf. Andy Soucek comes across the line in P7. Great drive from Jens Renault Moller ahead. Aston Martin, P1, huge congratulations to Charlie Eastwood, who put it on pole this morning. Vincenzo Sospiri Racing 2nd place for Yuki Namoto and Baptiste Moulin. And 4th, it was not a 2-3, it was not a double podium. Beretta passed by Bastian on the last lap of the race. This is the race winner. Tom Ferrier Motorsport, the 69 Aston Martin Vantage. The AMR MY 2019 spec car, superbly presented, and it's been quick. It has been the class act of the day. 2nd place yesterday in the rain, pole position this morning from Charlie. And Sam DeHaan has brought it home by 9 seconds ahead of Yuki Namoto. Aston Martin P1 at the Red Bull Ring here in Austria. So Sam DeHaan, Charlie Eastwood take the victory in the 10th race of the 2021 season. Baptiste Moulin and Yuki Namoto P2. And on the final lap of the race, Antonelli Motorsport with Nico Bastian. That fabulous move to drive by Michele Beretta takes the 3rd step of the podium with his co-driver Florian Schultz. Beretta, Schandorf, Jedlinski and Bash. Jens Renault Moller and Marcus Pavarud in P6. Andy Soucek, 2nd in the series, but 7th home today. This is the championship still. Schandorf and Beretta, they're helped by that unfortunate moment for Soucek. The gap is now 24 points. And they will lead going into Monza, the cathedral of speed, in 2 weeks' time. What a machine this is. Charlie steps in to congratulate his teammate.
Slight anti-climax.
Huh?
Hold up.
What time?
There's Marco Antonelli congratulating his driver Nico Bastian. That last lap move.
Little shit or so?
Charlie and Sam The smiles from the Aston Martin team drivers. Down in Parc Fermé, they take a fantastic, well-deserved victory. Aston Martin back on top. And we've got yet another winner in the 2021 GTOpen International Championship. The 5th round of the 2021 series. Yuki Namoto, a fine drive to P2. The driver from the land of the rising sun for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing.
So the air
Nico Bastian takes 3rd step off the podium here this afternoon with that last lap move together with his teammate Florian Schultz. Yuki Namoto, Baptiste Moulin, P2 for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, and Sam Dahan and Charlie Eastwood take victory here at the Red Bull Ring. Let's hear from the race winners down in pit lane now.
Sam Dahan, Charlie Eastwood, a happy return for TF Sport in the GTOpen and victory here in race 2 at the Red Bull Ring. Sam, you must be happy. You had quite an easy time, or not?
Yeah, I think Charlie did most of the hard work for me, so it was just kind of bringing the car home. Can't say a lot more than that. Very enjoyable drive for me.
And Charlie, this morning already with pole position, you proved that the Aston was really very fast here in this track.
Yeah, it was great all day. Still some spits of rain at the start of the race, and I was just trying to push every lap to get as much of a gap as possible. Crossing my fingers that we didn't have a safety car or anything like that. And then, yeah, give it over to Sam, and he just maintained the gap nicely. And yeah, we controlled it just to get across the line without doing one more lap. And yeah, great to get another victory in GTOpen.
It's wonderful. We want to see more of you in the championship.
Thanks,
well done, guys.
Thank you.
The highlights of a fantastic race 2 here in Austria. Charlie Eastwood from pole position, and that's the closest the rest of the field will see of him all afternoon. Carol Bash up into P2 immediately in the 777 Olymp Racing Mercedes. Went side by side with Eastwood, but the Aston Martin was simply too quick from the outset. Adam Carroll drove superbly for the Balf Motorsport Audi team. This was a nasty moment early on. Lucky to get away with this was Christian Korsanowski dragging gravel back onto the circuit. No harm done. They had a good account of themselves here all afternoon. Gerhard Teresa, a fabulous fight all afternoon as well with the 72 Optimum Motorsport McLaren of Nick Moss and Joe Osborne. Dominic Schrammel and Mario Hirsch went wheel-to-wheel towards the middle sector of the race. Charlie Eastwood handing over to Sam Dahan. Al-Faisal Al-Zubair doing likewise for Andy Soucek. Carol Bash consistently in the top 3, moved into 2nd place. This was a moment when Jens Renault Moller went wheel-to-wheel with Sean Balfe, the Honda versus the Audi, and it was the Japanese supercar that won out in that battle. Andy Soucek with a left rear, going bang just a few metres from the pits, and any chance of the Lechner Racing Porsche taking victory this afternoon went up in smoke. A dominant victories for Sam Dahan and Charlie Eastwood for Tom Ferrier Motorsport. They take the victory here this afternoon, the 10th race of the 2021 GTOpen International Championship. Position 3 for Nico Bastian with that fabulous move on the last lap of the race together with Florian Schultz. Second, Baptiste Moulin from Belgium together with the Japanese driver Yuki Namoto. Fabulous effort from him. And the winners of race 2 here at the Red Bull Ring. It's Sam Dahan and the boy from Belfast, Charlie Eastwood. They take the victory here in Austria.
Congratulations to our podium here. Please take the trophies and raise them and lift them up for the official podium picture. Dear sport, winning the center challenge squad in second place,
Well, the forecast of rain showers did not arrive, but there is a shower towards the end of the race. Fortunately, we're near them.
Didn't manage to overtake him.
He was fighting with the Audi.
Yeah, we
We were keeping him up.
No, the Lambo.
So the outright podium, 2 pro drivers, and with that last lap move by Nico Bastian, a Pro-Am entry as well. We will also proceed with the Pro-Am podium in just a moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't forget to join us in 2 weeks' time at Monza for the penultimate round of the championship. And of course on the 23rd of October for the series final in Barcelona. This is the Pro-Am race winner this afternoon, Nico Bastian. A slow-mo shot of the 47 Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. The Pro-Am podium in 3rd place, Jens Renault Moller and Marcus Pavarud. In the Renault Racing Honda NSX P2, the Poles Marcin Jedlinski and Karol Bash. And the Olymp Racing Mercedes 777. And the winners of the Pro-Am race here this afternoon, Nico Bastian, Florian Schultz for Antonelli Motorsport in the Mercedes AMG GT3. And also the AM entrant and victor here this afternoon, also for Olymp Racing, Stanislav Jedlinski and Christian Korsanowski in the 5 Olymp Racing Audi R8 GT3. Thanks for your company. It has been a pleasure to bring you the 5th round of the GTOpen International Championship. We'll see you at Monza, the penultimate round of the 2021 series in 2 weeks' time. On behalf of all the team, we'll see you in Italy in a fortnight.